Jim Schlossnagle, officially hired by the Texas Longhorns, leaving Texas A&M after reacting to a guest that will be on later in the show, Richard Zane from TexAgs.com, asking this question about the rumor that Texas was in on Schlossnagle to be the next head coach of their baseball program.
Speculating today about a specific job opening. What do you have to say about your future in Aggie land?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty selfish of you to ask me that question, to be honest with you. But I left my family to be the coach at Texas A&M. I took the job at Texas A&M to never take another job again, and that hasn't changed in my mind. And that's unfair to talk about something like that. That'd be like you asking Montgomery if he's going to sign in the draft. But I understand you got to ask the question, but I gave up a big part of my life to come take this job, and I've poured every ounce of my soul in this job, and I've given this job every single ounce I can possibly give it. So write that.
Oh, not only write that, this will be played over and over again.
He wrote it, by
Chad,
the way. Everyone wrote it.
Hours after that, and you know why he's sitting there. He knows he's getting that. He knows he's taking the job. Not just going after the reporter. Why say that if you know you're going to come across as a total ass hours later? Why do that? It makes no sense to me.
Well, and also,
and it's one of the biggest betrayals we've seen too, based on the programs and the universities.
He knows he's likely taking it, or he at least knows my agent's having big time discussions with one of my best friends, Chris Del Conte, about this job, and I'm interested. So how are you not more prepared?
But there are reports that he was calling on recruits about entering the transfer portal, which closes July 2nd.
We got to ask our A&M,
our
TexAgs guy
so
about that
to
see what's going on there. That's far worse.
Sports betrayals in the state of Texas. Let's start there with Clay. Clay Travis joins us.
Well,
Clay,
in all the sports, I think this one takes the cake from a coaching betrayal.
I mean, other than like Buddy Ryan with the Oilers back in the day, like going after Jerry Glanville's job. Like I don't know.
I think this is far worse to a program
and if not,
and a community. This is far worse.
And the Richard Zane, who joins us later in the show, shredded by A&M fans for asking that question.
Oh yeah.
And now, look what happened with their coach. Clay, what's up, man?
Yeah, hey, I was just talking about this. I mean, I think the best analogy is Pitino and Kentucky and going to Louisville. The difference is that he had a pro job in between, which meant he didn't just pack up one day and decide that he was going to go coach a bitter rival in the same state.
After a presser.
And so, I mean, the presser is I understand why people would be upset. I don't think there's anything he could have said that would make A&M fans be like, okay, we're over it. Like, he was a really good dude. I could have made it a little bit better, but the anger was going to be really high level no matter what. And it's not really that difficult of a question to answer.
No.
He could have just said, look, there's lots of things that are going to happen in the future for players and coaches. Everything in this day and age in college sports is, 1 year to the next. Everybody's being recruited all the time. I don't really want to get into the future right now because we're still dealing with the aftermath of this season. I'm just very impressed with what these kids accomplished. And, boom, that answer is not very difficult to give. But the reality is people would have been angry no matter what because he's leaving for the most hated rival of Texas A&M. And there's no job in the middle, unlike with Pitino. And Kentucky fans were furious at Rick Pitino for the decision to take the Louisville job. But I think I'm correct that he left and went to the Celtics in between for a few years. So that maybe helped to balance out the anger a bit. But the reality is when you go to coach a bitter rival, there's no way that it's going to be well received. And so I don't think there's any way to go from Texas A&M to Texas without everybody hating you, no matter how you handled it.
Yeah, Pitino's a good one, Clay, but I think 96 they won it. Kentucky did. 97, Pitino coached them, losing to Miles Simon in Arizona, I believe, in the national championship game. The equivalent would have been the next day. Rick Pitino hops in a car and goes to Louisville. Like, this is so beyond. He went to the Celtics, failed, and then his best offer was Louisville after that. But that would have been the exact same equivalent, losing in the national championship game and the next day leaving, and especially doing it after saying, I left my family for this job.
Right.
With the intention, this is the last job I'm ever going to accept, and nothing has changed with that.
And it really would have been.
This is far worse than anything I can ever remember.
You have to flip the programs for the Pitino example, I think. It would be like making it to the championship game with Louisville and then the next day jumping to Kentucky, if we're talking about championships won in college baseball.
Yeah, well, and Clay, I mean, you're not naive about any of this stuff, obviously. You know, fans, though, can convince themselves to be kind of naive about things. You were in Omaha for this series. I heard from a lot of Tennessee fans that kept hearing from A&M fans, boy, enjoy Tony V right now because he's headed to Austin. He's going to be playing he's going to be coaching for the other UT soon. To then turn around and have their guy leave for Texas after taunting Tennessee fans with that, you feel pretty dumb if you're an A&M person.
And everyone at Texags, Clay, is including Billy, is saying, I apologize. We were duped. We were lied to. This is BS. And now they're circulating things about, I would say in the media, circulating things about recruiting behind the scenes, about the portal. This is only going to get it's better for us. This is gold in the SEC.
Well, yeah, I think it's very good for college baseball, crazily, because it creates passion and storylines and rivalry. And frankly, this is no great surprise to anybody, right? The opposite of love isn't indifference, it's hate. And they're very closely related, emotions. And so Aggie fans went from being up 1-0 in the 6th inning thinking, hey, we're going to get our first men's national championship since 1939, to suddenly losing in brutal fashion back-to-back games, and then having the coach that had you that close to a championship leaving. And now they're going to have – I saw Jace Laviolette, the stud player that they have, sophomore, has entered the transfer portal. So it's not just now when your coach leaves, it's that everybody is a 1-year deal. And I think there's going to be at some point a resolution of that where they're going to have to say, hey, we can't have, every year perpetual free agency in college sports, just like we don't have it in pro sports. And I think at some point that's going to end. But right now you have a situation where not only did Texas A&M's coach leave, but some of their star players could decide to go play for Texas and follow the coach. And so it's just a messy situation. And I think what it brings home ultimately is most places don't have a great deal of loyalty, either the school or the coach or the player. And fans have far more loyalty to their program than the coaches, the players that they root for. And I think that disconnect is what is really upsetting to so many of them.
Clay, what a time to be a Vol right now. You're up there buying Jell-O shots for pretty much everyone in Omaha. And then you look up in that box and you got Rick Barnes and Josh Heupel and Danny White and Peyton Manning and Morgan Wallen and all those guys together. And I'm watching this. I'm watching the game on throughout the weekend, but on Monday night on television when those guys are together. And, Clay, I can't think of a time where we just talked about how college sports is a very disloyal business for those in the middle of it, working it. It doesn't really feel that way at Tennessee right now. There seems to be a lot of synergy with that group, and everything seems to be, if not headed in an upward trajectory, where it is stabilized to a really good level with pretty much every sport that matters in Knoxville.
Maybe. I think right now at this exact moment, that's the answer. But it was only a couple of years ago that Rick Barnes was about to leave for UCLA, and Tennessee was having to settle what many people thought for Central Florida. And Tony Vitello was somewhat unproven. So things can change quickly. I don't think Peyton Manning's going to abandon them. No. I don't think Morgan Wallen's going to abandon them.
Those are the two I feel good about not abandoning the Vols.
Who was the dude in the middle? Do we know?
Yeah. And I made the argument, I think it's a fun debate. Can you think of a more famous duo than Peyton Manning and Morgan Wallen to be sitting side by side watching a college sporting event?
No one other than Kelsey and Taylor Swift.
Yeah, well, I mean, athlete and entertainer.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to beat. And Kelsey is obviously on the field.
Yeah.
So Taylor Swift is a monstrosity by herself. But Morgan Wallen, I mean, I think you guys can argue with me if you can think of somebody else. I would bet that Morgan Wallen is the biggest draw in all of men's music right now. In other words, I bet he can sell out places better than any men's artist in America can right now.
Yeah, the stadium shows. It's like it's him and what?
Yeah, there's not that many.
Yeah.
The list is short, right?
Very
of the number
short.
of guys or gals that can go in and sell out a state. We know Taylor Swift is number one right now for women. Beyonce might have been it in the past, right? There's a relatively short. The Rolling Stones have done it. U2 probably at their peak.
Yeah, maybe
but
10
now,
artists
Are
total.
you
in our-
asking, Clay, though, like super fans of a school to get a pairing of athlete
Yeah.
entertainer?
Athlete entertainer.
It'd be Matthew
Peyton Manning
McConaughey
and
with
Morgan
Texas and someone else from Texas, but I'm having a hard time thinking about the Roger Clemens from Texas. Like, who's the Texas
I don't
athlete
think
right
there's
now?
ever
Vince Young?
been- my thesis is athlete superstar, side by side, watching a college sporting event. Can you beat Peyton Manning, Morgan Wallen? I'm not sure anybody in college athletics can beat that duo right now.
It's a good
No.
duo.
Now, I wonder, 5 years from now, could Livy Dunn and Paul Skeens be that?
I think it's tough for a Major League Baseball pitcher to get to quarterback status is the problem, especially with Peyton's commercials and everything else he's a part
That's
of.
a good question.
But
actually.
Livy Dunn is
I
the
think
draw.
It's a
she's
good one.
actually more famous. I think she's more famous than he is.
She
Oh,
is,
yeah.
for sure she
Yeah.
is. And she's going to stay famous, too.
I think that's likely to be the case. Yes. Good for her.
Yeah.
You raised a good question. In my mind, I'm trying to think of who would I pair with Tom Brady at Michigan from an entertainment standpoint that's attached to Michigan, and no one really comes to mind.
He's been there. Michigan doesn't have superstar entertainers. Brady has been there with other famous athletes. I mean, there are other famous athletes that obviously have gone to Michigan, but I'm just saying top athlete, affiliated with the school, by the way. I'm not talking about you're flying in, like Leonardo DiCaprio, I think every now and then flies into a big sporting event in college and might watch it because he's a sports fan. I'm talking about like Morgan Wallen is a fan of Tennessee, whatever you think about him. Like he's a diehard fan of Tennessee. And Peyton Manning obviously played there. So college, star from your college with a superstar. I don't know that I think it would be almost impossible to beat Peyton Manning, Morgan Wallen.